Welcome back. Major stock markets in Asia closed higher after struggling for direction earlier in the day. Concerns over the state of the US-China trade negotiations, as well as a recent escalation of violence in protests in Hong Kong, continued to loom over regional markets. Japan's Nikkei gained 0.1% to close at 23,520 points. Mainland Chinese shares were mixed, with the Shanghai Composite and Shenzhen Composite both gaining 0.1%. Meanwhile, market movements in Hong Kong continued to be monitored. The Hang Seng Index rising 0.4% at its final hour of trading, with shares of Chinese tech giant Tencent jumping 1.8%. Looking at the U.S. markets, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq stock indexes slipped from record highs as uncertainty about progress in the U.S.-China trade talks again rose to the fore following comments by President Donald Trump. A jump in Boeing shares helped the Dow Jones Industrial Average eke out again to rise at 0.1% at 27,708. The S&P losing 0.1% to close just above 3,000 points, and the Nasdaq Composite dropping 0.1% to close over 8,000 points. Well, lots happening with the markets. Of course, everybody keeping an eye on President Donald Trump, who's set to address a speech in New York. Likely focus is going to be the US-China trade deal. Everybody's going to be looking out for, of course, hints coming out of that. Later on in the week, we do have US retail sales figures that are due to be released. And of course, we also have the Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who's also due to deliver a speech as well. But as these news come in, let's have a look at how they're playing out in the global markets. For more on the markets, I'm joined from our JSE studio by Martin Harris from IG South Africa. Good afternoon, Martin. Of course, US-China trade negotiations continue to dominate sentiment. What's your assessment of some of the mixed signals that we're receiving from, of course, Washington at this point?
Thank you for having me, Nastasia. I think just taking a look at US-China trade talks, it's been dominating headlines over the last several months. Every day is a different story. Really what we're looking for, though, in the long game is that China are trying to extend these trade talks for as long as possible. I think they've got a lot of political will amongst their citizenry to continue dragging this out, versus someone like Donald Trump needs to get some quick and easy wins just to bolster his support within the United States. He's also coming up for re-election, and Donald Trump has typically been really positive for markets. So what you want to see are positive wins for Donald Trump, so that Donald Trump remains in the market, for the markets to continue going higher. So there's a lot of conflicting news that keeps coming out of the trade talks, and at the moment really what we're trying to see is that China are trying to renegotiate on the previous assessment that the United States had said was the deal that they had put forward through until December.
Based on that, then, how did the JSE kick off its trading?
Look, the JSE's been doing all right for today. I think we're up about 0.4%, almost 200 points on the top 40, led by Amplats and other diversified miners. And that's really on the back of really strong platinum and palladium prices. And the weakest market of the day, company has been MultiChoice after sort of a disappointing set of results yesterday that showed that their rest of Africa operations continues to run at a quite an expensive loss.
Right. We also had half-year numbers coming out of Telecom. Lots of speculation with regards to what their future plans will be. But let's talk about those figures. What did you make of them?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into the speculation. I think what we're seeing with Telecom, their core headline earnings per share down 40%. Really what they've been doing is a lot of expenses to try and get market share in their mobile division, so they've really switched almost all their eggs into mobile services. They're losing revenue at an accelerated progress now on their fixed lines, so the copper lines, as they're uninstalling those, putting down fiber, which is a lower margin good, and then trying to then connect that fiber then to the LTE network. So that's really where their shift has been going. I think using this, what they've been doing is they've been taking on a lot of debt to finance this growth, and so they've even had to revise their EBITDA to debt recommendations. They were previously at 1.2. They've now actually pushed through to 1.4 times debt to EBITDA, so they've said going forward they're going to try and keep it under 1.5 times. So yeah, just looking at that, they've released a cautionary about a potential acquisition. On the news of that potential acquisition, I saw that Blue Label Telecom shares are up about 14% today, and there is potential that they could be looking to acquire a big stake in Cell C to access some of the spectrum that Cell C hold, and so that they can expand their mobile service offering.
Looking at the week ahead, what will you be paying attention to with regards to either news or company events? I know Tencent is due to publish their numbers tomorrow.
Absolutely. So Tencent have been under pressure as of late, and sort of we would expect a muted set of results coming out for Tencent. I think a lot of traders out there will enter the market now for things like call options, hoping for a surprise to the upside, and they'll do the same for the local market on the likes of Naspers, and we might have a look at what Prosus is also doing. I think just in terms of the week ahead, offshore, what we'll probably be looking at, 3 big companies out of the States that will give an indication on markets are going to be Nvidia, so they'll give an indication of what the tech sector is looking like. They're really driven by 1, Bitcoin mining, 2 would be like gaming, and also artificial intelligence, all the autonomous car driving, things like that. Second company will be Walmart, give an idea of where the US consumer is right now. And the third one is going to be Tilray, which is the leading cannabis company in Canada, just to try and see where they are. That's a frontier business. It's still unproven in the market. They're unable to make any profits, and they've been spending very aggressively to try and boost sales. So from the international markets, we'll be looking at that. And then locally, I think week ahead, only a small number of companies are still set to release results. If I just quickly take a look at my calendar, I think Spar Group and Dis-Chem Pharmacies are going to have their ex-dividend, and Woolworths. I think Woolworths is going to be the big one on the 14th of November. I think most of the market is going to be looking forward to that after they had written off their stake in David Jones down to 0.
Martin, thank you so much. Let's leave it there. That is Martin Harris from IG South Africa, joining us live from the JSE studios, of course, taking us through what has been unfolding on the market side, particularly on the JSE.